Bob Simon was an American TV correspondent for CBS News. He worked mainly as a foreign correspondent, often in various very dangerous locations and conditions. But he is probably best known to many of you for his work on CBS's long-running program, 60 Minutes. He won more honors, journalistic honors, than any other contemporary North American journalist. Mira and I were fortunate to get to know him personally. He died a couple of years ago in a taxi in New York. Real-time news for Bob Simon in memoriam. People find pleasure in caged parrots and trust their wisdom of repetition, you said to my wife at dinner in Istanbul. And you answered no when the waiter repeated his question again, choosing instead a red olive to hold inside your cheek like a pause. We were discussing Ukrainian farmers who satisfied Stalin's gluttonous plan with 5 years of eating their seed grain, as well as their children dying of hunger or already dead. A large reckoning in a large land. Mother Russia knew, because journalists had learned to move eyes without moving their bodies, and speak without moving their lips. Something not taught today in journalism school. In our kind of work, we don't wash our hair every day, and acquaintances are everywhere, but friends few. Nothing is sure. When I mentioned Murrow, you let the ghostly great ones walk past. Leave us alone, most of them strangers long before their final farewell. The ache of acquaintance that didn't go away, how it's still there with breaking news. And no one ready to explain how a body leaves silvered years, the stretch of another long day's work, and a frown of diligence behind in the rear seat of a mangled black limousine, or why friendship does not deserve death. And in this world of much acquaintance, death does not deserve a friend. In general, long poems are not in fashion in today's literary journals and magazines, but I am naturally attracted to the long poem, and I suppose I can claim it personally as a métier. It's always a challenge writing a long poem. It's always a risk, but it's always an opportunity to create a multi-layered work that interweaves several lines of development, 2 or more principal themes and several sub-themes, for example. A range of impulses, poetic forms, modes of discourse, to create a complex intellectual and emotional texture. I'm reading the title poem of the new volume, Find What Isn't Missing. It's one of my long poems and the only one I will read today, to the memory of Jim Berlin, who was my office neighbor for many years. They say there's a hum in everything, a universe getting ready, and quite unlike the rag collector's morning shouts below our balcony in Kolkata, the student march in Seoul, a street evangelist's alarms in London, a pregnant beggar's call in Budapest to her cohort across the street. Nightcap screams of the church elder at his newest wife in the flat below in Midland, Texas. Cacophony of crows escorting the black and white of a nest-robbing eagle across the clear cut on the Harrison River Trail. A straight line raucousness fading into the west. Jet-lag sleep. The hum of waking that takes its place. Daybreak, simple as feet touching the floor, and a rat-a-tat outside the window, emptying itself of repetition. The dead walnut tree's gray nakedness found by the sun and commandeered by the red and black of the woodpecker's walk up the tree's spine. Nowhere but here. The journal notebook open on the night table. Yesterday's in-flight entry. The purpose of travel, adapt consciousness to world. The purpose of writing on travel, adapt world to words. The purpose of reading on travel, adapt consciousness to words. The purpose of traveling without a list of what you've lost, find what isn't missing. My wife's bare shoulders and teal housecoat shrugging off the chill. Our Boston Terrier shivering at the door in his deep sleep, nose against corkscrew tail. A trio of neighbors jogging through their breath, Jim in the lead. Explaining with his hands, and then their absence, patience settling in. I pour my wife an overfull cup of coffee and ask whether we're done with traveling this year. One suitcase will have to be replaced. A question of readiness. Like Jim, for years, first one up for the family trip, dressing in the dark, loading his car in white stocking feet, legs and arms nervous with intention because he knew wife and sons were about to dress and he would soon have packed as much as needed, maps stuffed into the passenger side pocket because he had memorized roads in advance, all of them important, like starting over. The time we mused our new car from the Montreal Pier to the Pacific, the sun rose behind us and berserk flies escaped through the chill of the car's cracked window. Each day, crosswinds on the wheel eased off and planes unfolded their calm horizon by horizon. Once home, we unpacked our cargo. First, the disappointments, then suitcases, cartons, fatigue. We fell asleep without undressing. But Jim, you would unpack your car, find your jogging shoes, and run for an hour, the usual route. That's how they found you. There's a formlessness within us all, incomprehensible, out of the pale, and lying close together will not help. No faint edged sky to hold the mind. What can be done, poised against nothing at all. And there's bereftness, even in counting steps to the basement to inspect our children's numbered cartons, taped more than once for a move. Turn each on its side to the window to see if time has bled its gray through the bottom, if the scrawl on the largest box is legible, the children far from what they left behind. And they may have taken too little with them of what they need. A small start of mildew, but only on the tallest box, heavily taped, its sides slack when boxes next to it are moved away. One day, I'll open that box. A morning when we're not going anywhere. The silver knife a man in Cold War Prague traded for a copy of the Atlantic Monthly will cut the tape cleanly and the box will open almost by itself, as though time and place are still the same as cities where our children once stood shoulder to shoulder among other children with what one day would seem apocryphal, forgotten by them all. The box was much too large to start with, considering what goes missing over time. But it's the emptiness I fear. Contents removed, several at a time. Unrecorded inventories. Nothing to be repacked or sent on. And in the end, the top freshly taped again out of habit, as if to regulate what's left inside. The only name on the box crossed through by one of the children. Someone who's figured out the more a box is emptied, the more is missing. And only the emptiness belongs to us. Jim, you would have said, check it out. Most things can be used, and some are still there and should be taken along. I imagine you, sweat-laced from the run, bending down to grasp this box, sagging into itself, lifting it carefully with both arms, not tightly, moving it closer to the light to find what is missing.